Recording started. All right, so before we get into UVs today, I'm going to just cover a few little more things about the retopo process that I felt were important that we didn't cover last week. One of them being a question that Ike just asked, which is how do I handle asymmetry? And what I tend to do is whenever I have an object that is, partially symmetrical, I will do the parts that are symmetrical first. So I'm only going to do part of this just to kind of explain or show. Where are we? Okay, points of basis. So for instance, this part here is symmetrical, right? Or you know what? Let's do the back. Let's do it in the back. So you can see that this part is symmetrical, but here it's asymmetrical, right? So what I'll end up doing, this is actually the perfect place to do this. All right, so we just take these little areas. I'm doing this very loosely. Like this isn't going to be the best topology. It's just to kind of demonstrate. Okay. Right. Gonna get a decent, at least a decent loop around here. All right. Okay. I hope my volume's okay. Let me know if I'm not okay. But I'm in the red. It should be fine. It's the same as usual. Yeah. Volume is perfect. Good. All right. Thanks, guys. I depend on you. It's up to you to make sure that the quality of the stream is up. Okay. So there we go. Cap that. And all right, so I'm just going to do this part now, and I'm going to go up here. And I'm going to kind of like get things in sort of place here, even though I know that they're asymmetrical. I tend to, carry some stuff over at the top because they kind of meet up at the top. And at that point, they're symmetrical again. Okay. So we got this. All right. Okay, come on. Work for me, please. There you go. All right, so. Perfect. All right, this will do. This will do. For demonstration purposes, this will do. If this would link, it would be good. There we go. It'll cap that. All right. So, oops, I always do that. You hit the W key, it shows the wireframe. I don't really like that feature. I don't know why it's even there. It's probably for another part of the tool that I just don't use. All right, so we know that this part is symmetrical in the other part, and this center part is not. So what I end up doing is I do this, and then I hit symmetry, and now it is symmetrical, and then I hide the symmetry plane, and we have this mirrored over. And then what I'll do is I'll just go in and I'll fix the areas that are asymmetrical. So I'll just take this and I'll hit snap. Where's that snap button? Snap, there. So now you can see like all the asymmetrical parts have adjusted. And then I just go in and I fix up any of the topology that just doesn't match up. All right, so we get, I want to kind of get that kind of curve there. Or I want to, match the silhouette of that hairpiece. There we go. Okay. So yeah, something like that. So now I've basically fixed up the areas that are asymmetrical, and I was able to take advantage of symmetry on areas that were symmetrical. I hope that helps you, Ike, because I know that you were asking about that. And I essentially just did that on a bigger scale for the body, where I just did the symmetrical parts first, mirrored it over, and then I did the asymmetry. Okay, so that was the first point. Second point I want to bring up is actually following up on the fact that we have used symmetry. Now, the big thing is that this boot is lower than this boot, right? But I use symmetry to get the base of this leg, and you can see a lot of the leg is mirrored over, and we don't necessarily need that because the boot and the body are very, very close together. Ideally, I don't want to have any of the body underneath the boot because there's going to be a lot of clipping when you're deforming the model. So I will actually remove anything that is not needed, right? So this is all outside of visibility. And actually, I probably don't even need this loop. And let me have a look. Oh, no, I need that. I don't need all of it. I'm going to cut it in half. There we go. Let's have a look. Perfect. This even has more still that I don't need. I could probably get rid of the bottom of the knee here. And I will also pull in this a little bit. You know what? I'm going to keep that little piece. I might regret it later, but whatever. But I will shrink it down a little so that it's just a little bit smaller than the boot. And if I find that it's clipping a lot later, I'll just delete it. You want to see the topology on the chest? Looks like this. So I try to get like as clean loops as possible, right? So I have, you can see that there's a general line that goes across, and then I kind of break it up with the cross section. Yeah, this is a little bit, I'm a little bit skeptical about this. But you can see that what I tend to do is when I have the straight line across is, here, let me take a snipping tool. Oops, yeah. It'll bake fine. I'm more worried about skinning and deformation, you two. Oops, I should, hold on, I need to see the wireframe. Idiot. Right. So you can see that I have generally a loop that goes like this. And if you look at it like this, there's generally, this is the general edge flow. And I've broken it up with a triangle. So basically like I've just cut into that edge. But if I'm weighting it, this kind of edge here, this ring still exists so that I know that this vert here, these areas will be a little bit troublesome because they extend a little bit past it. But generally, I could weight this all the same to a spine joint and it should be generally okay. So like spine 1 or 2 would be on there, right? No, never think like that as a modeler. Skinning is your problem. If it's too difficult to skin, you've done a bad job. It's your job to make it easier for the riggers. Yeah. Ooh, I also noticed that I never fixed this. I'm gonna regret that later, but whatever. We'll fix this before we bake it. Oh, we could probably fix it today. I'll fix it at the end of stream. That'll be something I'll bring up at the end of stream. Or yeah, that'll be fine. We'll do that. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to bring up is I wanted to bring up a little correction. I wanted to correct myself a little bit from last week. So last week I ranted about never using auto-retopo or auto-UVs and stuff like that. But I realized that that is also a blanket statement, and I don't like it when teachers do blanket statements. There are uses for auto-retopo, and that kind of stuff can work, but you don't want to leave it as is. You always want to modify it at least a little bit. Blanket statements are not good, right? And I have this one piece that I haven't taken or retopped yet. Now, this piece is generally pretty decent topology-wise in ZBrush. It's just a cylinder, right? So if we look at this, you know, it's a pretty clean shape. This is actually perfectly usable, but it is a little bit dense. Obviously, I could go down to the low subdivision level, but I want to keep it a little bit up so that I have a little bit of the shape that I wanted, and I'll probably just remove all the loops I don't need. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this and I'm going to export it. And we're going to export it as temp because I always export to a temp file so that I don't, oops, shoot. Okay. Config, restore custom component. I don't like these buttons. I always accidentally click them. And these are like interface presets. And if you like scroll through them, you'll go through a whole bunch of them. But I always accidentally click it instead of the minimize and it ruins my interface. Anyway, I export it to a temp file all the time so I don't end up with like 100 OBJs or FBXs or whatever. Do you think you can lower the subdivision base and retopo to the retopo too? What do you mean? Can you reword that, please? Okay, so what I do, and the reason why I wanted to have it a little bit more dense is because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to make sure that it matches the leg. So we're going to go through the whole thing and just go around. This one actually matches up. That's pretty good. Use the lower subdivision. Yes, you can. I usually like to use the higher one as a base though because it's more accurate to the final shape. And then I can clean it up from there. But yeah, you can do whatever you like. You can definitely do the lower one too if you wanted. Both are valid. But anyway, I felt this was very important to bring up because right after stream I was like, wait a minute, I did that thing that I always tell teachers not to do. Or also I always say that it annoys me and it was pretty hypocritical of me. So I definitely needed to clarify. I might actually add an extra loop there, but we'll see. Just because this is a little bit wider than the leg underneath, it might be worth having one, like doubling up this loop or something, maybe. Okay. I think you said you could use Auto-retopo for something last week too. I was watching. Did I? Okay. Either way, I didn't explain it. And I don't remember saying it. So I'm bringing it up now. Oh, someone's going fast in the highway. Okay. I'm going to extend this out a little bit as well. I'm going to have to push in that belt strap. I could probably just delete the excess of this belt strap underneath as well because you don't see it. And I'm probably going to do exactly that. Yeah, I don't like that I pulled that out. Okay, but there you go. You could probably evenly space this as well. My target goal here though was just to get the silhouette, and this bottom part didn't change very much, so that's why I removed the edge. But maybe if you, for deformation purposes, you want it to be evenly spaced, that's also valid. But I felt in this case that's what I wanted to do. If I wanted to as well, I could delete this edge, but you get this kind of like bad shadowing. So I like to add like one edge down the middle. I tend to do this on belts and stuff too, but you know, it all depends on like how much, you know, how much what your polygon budget is. That's the wording I was looking for, right? So it depends on your polygon budget. If you don't have the like, if you can't have a certain number of polygons, then you probably don't want to do that. But for a portfolio piece, I can do whatever I want. So you know what? There you go. But I wanted to bring that up as well. Like sometimes you might not have more than you need. Yeah, there we go. Then we got that little, you know, that little boot part. Okay. So that's pretty good. What else did I want to cover? I guess I could follow that up on other areas as well. So similarly, I did this for the strap on this arm, but I didn't do it on this arm. So it's the same kind of deal, right? I just go in and I go into wireframe view. I just make sure that the polygons underneath line up with the belt, right? As best you can. You can't always get away with this, right? Because just because sometimes the belt's on an angle, for example, and it can't line up, right? But if it can, it's nice to get it as close as you can. Just because it'll deform better, right? So when things twist, they don't penetrate as much. So the closer you can get to lining up the overlying topology with the underlying topology, the better off you are. Yeah. I'm uploading the Z tool for review at the end of the class. Sounds good. I'll let me know when it's up, and I'll be sure to download it before the end so that I can have a look without having us wait on the download. All right, there we go. Okay. I don't want to spend too long on this because I know that the topic of today is UVs. So I'm not going to go too far into this, but I just wanted to show one or two of these because I think that's a little bit different from stuff that we showed last week. And I wanted to make sure that it was covered. And it's up now? Okay, cool. It's 98 megs? Okay. For my own ease, Cable, do you think you could DM me the link to that folder so I don't have to go searching for it? Discord, yeah, that would work. Okay. And another thing I'm going to do too is this belt. So this belt is like the other ones. We extracted these at first, and then we converted them to belts. Is how we made these. But when things get smoothed out in ZBrush, this is a little bit sharper because these edges are close together, right? But these edges are far apart. So what ends up happening is you end up with this kind of like rounded belt. And we could have added edges so that it doesn't round off, but I like that look. So this edge is rounded off in ZBrush. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to add a bevel. Just round off that edge. So that way it'll bake nicer. If I really want to be accurate, I could have brought in the other belt and then made sure that the bevel kind of lines up. For the sake of time, I'm not doing that, but it's probably a good idea to do that if when you guys do belts and things like that. I'll probably just do the same thing on this one because I'm here. It's done. Thank you. Wop wop. All right. Give it. And we'll start that download. Yeah, do your thing, Google. Okay. And there we go. So that's kind of the treatment that I do on all the belts. I've done it on these ones as well, and this one. I haven't done it on a couple of the other ones, like this one or the neck one. But you get the idea. I'll do those ones later. Okay, so the next and last thing I want to bring up for retopo, as far as like technical stuff goes, is the eye area. And we brought this up a little bit last week, but I wanted to like do it properly now. And that was like the eyelashes and the eyeshadow kind of occlusion. You'll notice she doesn't have her teeth in here either. I'll put those in after. Just because I'm reusing some teeth that I had. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into ZBrush, and we're going to take our model here. And what I need to do is grab her eye. Oh wait, hold on, not that eye. So if you'll remember that with this eye geo here we had last way in the beginning, is we used layers on this to add this kind of plane break, and that was just to like give us some kind of visual indication of the eye. But because it's layers, we can actually turn off the trim, right? So if we go into here, we hit iris. There, see that is now gone. We could probably also turn off the rotation. Offset stays, and I don't remember. Oh, this was the color, which is weird. Okay. Now what we do is we just take this geometry, reduce the subdivision levels because we don't need all that. Export it. You know what? Actually, I take it back. Hold on. I want to keep the rotation, and there's a good reason for that. Okay. And I'll get into that in a minute. So we're going to just export the eye. Then we take our model here. Temp. There we go. So we got this eye mesh in there, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the eyes. So we have two spheres here, right? And I'm going to center the pivot on both of these. And because they're perfectly round, this is why we got rid of that plane break. They're perfectly round. The pivot, the center pivot, will be right in the center of the eyeball, right? So now what I can do is I can take this eye, and I can do a parent constraint, or a point constraint, probably be ideal. So click this. Gotta go to the rigging tab, constrain point. Go back to modeling. All right, so now the eye is in the right place, right? We're gonna get rid of that constraint. You could line this up by hand too, but this is just faster, you know? We're just gonna take this and we're gonna just reduce the radius to whatever we need. So it's kind of close. And realistic eyes too, to keep in mind, is they're not perfectly spherical. They're a little bit oval. So maybe that's what you'll end up doing. I always just keep them perfectly round just because it's just way easier to deal with, right? But if you're going like for hyper realism, you're probably not going to be doing that. And you're probably going to have a bit of a bulge and you're going to do some other stuff. But we're doing stylized characters, so I'm not really going too far into that. But it's stuff to keep in mind that eyes are treated a little bit differently for realism because, again, you're going to have all this extra stuff. I don't even do that thing where you indent the eye because I use a displacement map to get that kind of iris offset. And the reason I do that is because from the side, if you do the crevice, you're going to just see the eye be flat, right? Realistically, a real eye has a kind of refraction going on in the sclera. I think it's the sclera, or whatever that the film is on top. And you're going to see the color of the iris bulging out, and then the pupil kind of like inset inside there from the refraction. Refraction. And you get closer to that effect using parallax than you do by actually like modeling in the geometry, because otherwise you're going to have some sort of special shading in order to get the refraction, which is fine if you're rendering in Maya, like in Arnold or Redshift or whatever. But in the game, you're not really going to have that kind of refraction in a material. So displacement is, in my opinion, the better way to go. And I'll just rotate this by 90 degrees. So this is, I'm just kind of like ballparking it for around 60K. She's 70K right now, because she's got a bunch of extra stuff she doesn't need. Also, these, oh yeah, these are, there we go. She's about 60 because these eyes are in here. I was gonna say, wait a minute, she was not that dense. And then we're gonna just reduce that. I think 14 might be a good number. 20 around perhaps. Let's remove that. No, wait, hold on. Now this is why I also wanted to keep the rotation in here. And that is so that I can just take this rotation in the Y and just kind of like line it up. There we go. And I want to keep it like that just because I know that iris lines up, right? I know that looks good in ZBrush. Although there's something funky going on with this. This isn't quite centered, so I'm a little bit concerned. Yeah, there's something weird going on, so I'm probably gonna have to screw around with this later. But at least I'll get something close. Hold on. I pushed the wrong button. Okay. Yes, that's fairly decent. I'll delete that. I'll delete that. I'll delete this group. Boom. I don't need the back part of this eye either. I'm gonna keep it for now. And the reason I'm gonna keep that for now is so that I can keep this history. Because I might later on say like, oh, actually I want it to be like denser. But I usually keep this history on the eye up until the end because it allows me to say like, oh, I kind of want to like save a few polygons, and I'll be like, well, I could just do this and just reduce it a little bit and no one will notice. So stuff like that I'll do. It's something to keep in mind. Hey Jao, welcome in. But yeah, my general ballpark cable is for most models is around 50 or 60K for a portfolio piece. It depends on like what you're doing, right? So like when I'm working on models for my game, I try to keep them around 25, 20K because I want it to run on a Switch. But even that might be a little bit high. Mind you, there aren't a lot of characters in my game, and it's pretty small scope, relatively small scope, right, compared to like a AAA title. As an indie title, it's way too high scope, but that's besides the point. And so I can get away with a little bit more, I think, but I still have to experiment. And again, like this is going to vary a lot depending on what you're working on, right? If you're working on mobile, you probably want to stay within. It's been a long time since I worked in mobile, so my information is dated. When I started working in mobile stuff, I had just like you could only have like 7,000 triangles on screen at once or something like that. I think it's much higher now. This was years ago when I had graduated. So that area is like, yeah, you kind of have to do your research. You have to like look into the platform and say you should be able to find this information. You can look it up and say like how much can I use on this device, right? But I know on PC you can go up to like 100 pretty easily most of the time. You'll have to have LODs to handle different PCs, right? But you can get away with a lot. Okay. Anyway, so the next thing I want to do is now that I have an eyeball in here, and wow, this actually lined up much better than it normally does. Look at that. Sweet. Normally this doesn't happen. But I kind of like adjust this edge a little bit just so that it sits outside of the eyeball. And the reason I do this is because I have the I'm gonna have this kind of occlusion mask that sticks in that kind of overlaps the eyeball. So what that is it's going to be like an alpha, which it's going to be a card that goes around with a black gradient. And I could probably demo that right off the bat. That one's going to be really easy. So I'm going to do that for us. And I don't think I have symmetry on, do I? Shoot. I got to undo all that. Hold on. Okay. Let's read. Symmetry across the x-axis. Okay. Mind you, she has an eye patch, so I don't even really need to make the stuff on the other side, and I can save polygons. I'm trying to keep it under 80K, my model, because I'm going to have to at least 20K on the hair. If not more, dude. Hair uses a huge part of the budget. It's pretty crazy. Like my character is stylized, and I think it's still like a huge chunk, and I don't even have the braid in. How many polygons is the hair? Hold on. This is 4,700. So yeah, a quarter of what you're saying, right? But also I'm missing a lot, right? There's also these side pieces and there's these. You can see I didn't finish these, right? These are just straight out of ZBrush. I gotta clean them up because they're too dense. And she has little fur tufts in her ears, which I haven't done either. And that is already almost 6,000. And compared to a model that's 40,000, right? So it's almost like a quarter. Wait, is that right? It's almost a quarter. Yeah, I guess. A little less. Once it's all said and done anyway. I've got a course from the guy that made the hair for Ally in Horizon Zero Dawn, and he said about 100k just the hair. Yeah, man. It can be pretty crazy. Okay, you can see that I didn't do these parts either. These are also just straight out of ZBrush, and I didn't have time to get to them. But that's okay because we don't really need everything because we can't UV everything in one stream. That's just not realistic. Okay, so on the note of eyelashes, which we covered last time briefly, but I want to again bring it up properly now. Don't crash ZBrush. Okay. Great. So now I have these eyelashes, and these are my proxy eyelashes that I made in ZBrush, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to export these guys and put them in here. Yeah. Okay. And we're going to take that. And there we go. So what I now do is I'm going to turn off symmetry because I just want to do it one side at a time. Oops. Let's do that. We're going to duplicate it. And I did say that, again, I did say this last week, but what I do is I just take this little strip from the eye, I just delete everything else, right? Okay. And I'm going to need both sides. So on the inner edge here, this is where the shadow is going to come out from, and out here is where the eyelash is going to come out from. So I just take that and I just remove any extra edges that I don't need, extrude it. I'm just going to yank that out. Oops. Okay, well, we'll just pull it out this way. All right. I'll just pull that up. I'm going to make this a live surface. Is it possible to switch, that the switch is closer to mobile right now? Yeah, from what I hear. Yeah, it's much closer to mobile. It's definitely not close to PS4. PS4 can handle a lot more. So this is one concern I have as well that I always end up encountering, and it's too late to do anything about it now, but I'll bring it up anyway. And is that the eyelashes in ZBrush are very thick, and that can distort your kind of view of the eye shape, right? So the eye shape isn't necessarily quite the same as as it looks in ZBrush because of the eyelash, this chunky eyelash that you've modeled, right? So that is something that I need to be a little bit more careful about. But I wasn't, clearly. So what's going to end up happening is the eye is going to look a little bit wider than it does in ZBrush in the low poly because the eyelash was overcompensating. And I could go in there, and if I had more time, I would probably go back and readjust the eye to be how I want it to be. But I just don't have that time, unfortunately. So now that we have that in a general place, we're going to hide that. Okay. And we'll just take this eyelash and pull it up. Romolino, the Switch is basically mobile hardware. I'm pretty sure the last iPhones had more power than the Switch. Yes, yeah. Yeah, hello, how you doing? Hey Queens, welcome in. We're about to get onto UVs. It did take a little bit longer to get to the UV portion than I would have liked, but this is important. Fancy Asus phones or Razer phones, yeah. Hey Bannon, we are creating. How are you doing, my friend? We're making eyelashes. Nifty, right? Isn't that nifty? I think that's pretty nifty. Okay. So one thing I'm actually going to do, this isn't necessarily realistic. The eyelash would come out from the top. No, never mind. Scratch that. Forget I said anything. But what I will do is I'm going to texture this part of the eye black for stylistic purposes, so that it kind of matches the eyelash color. And then I'm going to just take all this and then I'm going to extrude it inwards for the occlusion. And you'll see in a moment what we can do with this. And it's basically to fake ambient occlusion, shadowing around the eye. And it just makes the eye pop a little bit more. Right? Okay. So now we'll just delete this. And the great thing about doing it this way is that for this eyeshadow part, we already have UVs that will work for our needs. We don't even have to UV that strip, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new material, assign new material, Lambert. And I've already prepped this for us. So we're going to do I ambient occlusion. And I'm just going to take a file here and open that up. Go into our textures, and I do not have it. Hold on. I was like, I'm sure I had this pre-prepped. I know I did it. No, I didn't. Nope. Bravo me. Clap, 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 clap. All right, so we're going to go into our I have that texture that I made elsewhere. And of course I can't find it. Ironic, huh? Very ironic. Oh, there it is. Okay, found it. All right. So all this texture is a black gradient from opaque to transparent, and it looks like this, right? So it looks like that. We're covering a little bit of texturing here and UVs at the same time. So yeah, now I can select it. There it is. Hit 6 to preview. What? Hold on. That's weird. What? Oh. Use default material is on. Okay. Hold on. Wait a second. What is this? All right. Anyway, there it is. And what I also like to do is, because this is really difficult to deal with, I usually just kind of like take these and just yank them together. So, same with the other corner. There. Because it just crumples, and this is just gonna give you something that's cleaner. And you might want to have a little bit more occlusion on the top than the bottom, so you might just adjust these a little bit so that you get a little bit more occlusion on the top. Right? It doesn't have to be perfect, right? It just gives you like this nice little extra effect on the eye. And it depends on what style you're going for too. If I'm doing something very cartoony, I wouldn't do this because you want to have that really like crisp, bright eye. But for something that's PBR, it's like it's still stylized, but it's not like super cartoony. And for that, I would say like, yeah, you want to have a little bit of you want to have a little bit more grounding with just shadowing and just make it feel a little bit more built into the face, right? Whereas if it's cartoony, the eyes feel more kind of like slapped on onto the surface. Yeah, there we go. And we have that occlusion. And what ends up happening is with the UVs, we have just, all that happened is it automatically creates a perfect square UV texture on every polygon. And because they all line up, we automatically get this gradient for free. We don't have to UV anything. What I might do though is I might, you know, because you can see that there's a little bit of noise going on the inner edge, I might pull this in a little bit so that it doesn't, because it might catch a little bit from the other side. Because the textures loop. You can set it to clamp mode, and that should work for you, but that doesn't always work. So just in case, I like to pull this up a little bit so that I get this nice crisp black edge. You could probably also pull the other one down a little bit too, so you don't get the black edge showing on the other end. And there you go. Yeah. You're going to see that Maya has a lot of culling issues in the viewport. I wouldn't worry about it too much. But you'll see like as you get far away, it kind of disappears. That's just what Maya's going to do. It's just, it has those issues. And also, yeah, it's because it's using alpha cards as opposed to dithering, and that always is very hard as far as culling goes. But again, something just to be aware of. It's going to be there. Don't worry. Yeah. Doing good, trying to get motivated to work. Oh man, are you still like animating that crazy pixel character? We are UV mapping today, yep. When I retopo, I always try to keep as close to the original high poly as I can, that it makes the, yes, that's of course. You want to keep it pretty close. But you also have to accommodate for your budget, right? Because you might not have the polygons available to be as close as you would like. How is this supposed to be rigged? We'll get to that when we do the rigging. Don't worry. I'll explain it. All right. I could nitpick this eyelash forever, and I'll probably nitpick it more later. What I might do though is I might quickly assign a Lambert. Sometimes for preview purposes, I like to just, you know, add a dark material so that I kind of see what I'm getting. And again, like this inner edge, I'm going to just texture black because it looks nicer on a stylized character. Realistically, you're going to have that kind of skin there, that kind of like red flesh. But again, I do as I please, so you know what? Deal with it. Took me 3 days to retop the hair of my link. It takes forever, dude. I gotta hire you at some point for a thing. You're too good. Well, keep me posted. I'd be down to talk shop. All right, so there we go. So we're gonna get into UVs now. And for UVs, I tend to use UV layout. You can use whatever you want, but I really love UV layout. It has some quirks, and I'm going to explain those quirks, and we're going to go and work with them. Where are you going to texture this model? In Substance. It'll be textured in Substance and Photoshop, a combination of the two. Okay, so let's start with the body, because that's going to be, again, the most interesting part, right? Also the longest, most complex part. Who knew? So we're going to go with texturing. We're going to open UV layout. And I'm going to make sure that everything is saved. Oh, one other thing that I forgot to mention that I want to mention right now is when you use 3D Code for retop, it locks your normals. Make sure you do this. Select everything, mesh display, unlock normals. All right. And then, okay, so I think I already did this, but just in case, right? Modeling, top and edge. History. Okay. And you might want to intentionally have some harder edges. I don't in this case, but if you do, you want to like go into those edges and just harden them, right? Is it wrong that I deliver that to the texture artist as an undifferentiated triangle strip? Wait. Deliver what? The whole model as a strip of triangles? Or do you mean like an OBJ with a huge list of polygons? Like as a text file? Well, usually the texture artist will do the UVs. If you have a texture team. Oh, just like an auto UV and it's just all triangles. Yeah, you can send them whatever. You just send them a mesh and they'll do their thing. All right, so we're gonna chop this up now. Both the arms are unique. And I'm gonna separate all the skin portions from the body eventually. But yeah, we'll go in here and we'll just cut it. But this tool is wonderful. It really makes my life easier. Sorry, I just cut out. Where did I cut out? What was I saying when I stopped when my mic cut? I think I was just talking about this tool being good. Separating the arms. Oh, that was a bit ago. Okay. So yeah, I'm separating the arms here. Yeah, normally what I would be able to do is I'd be able to use symmetry on these arms once they're separated from the asymmetrical parts. But because everything is asymmetrical, I can't really do that. Where is? I missed a spot. Where? Oh, I cut the wrong edge. Okay. Okay. There we go. Never saw this tool? It's a nice tool. It's a little bit finicky. So what I mentioned before is that it has some quirks. One of them is its transfer from Maya to back and forth between this and Maya. The issue that it sometimes has is it won't actually copy the UVs over properly because you have extra nodes in here. Like, see this group ID here? That means that the object has multiple polygroups, or you have an object that has multiple polygroups from ZBrush. Make sure you delete all these. I didn't, so I might have a problem. But you want to make sure that those are gone because it won't when it comes to here, it's actually going to treat it as two different objects. And when you try to send it back, it's going to be two objects. And because it's now broken into two parts, it won't know how to transfer to the original mesh because it's broken into two parts. So basically separates all the polygroups. And you won't be able to know until you're done. So that's why I only bring in one chunk at a time and work on the chunk and then send it back. At the very beginning, I used to like bring everything in all at once and then I'd work on it and send it back. But I had so many issues and it just became a huge pain. So I don't do that anymore. Another thing to keep in mind too is that if this software crashes, even if you save it, you're kind of out of luck because it doesn't, the link between Maya and this tool is gone, right? And that means that it doesn't know how to send it back. You would have to like manually transfer the UVs over to the original mesh, which is what I would do. You can also kind of trick it by resending the original mesh and then opening the save file so that the connection is returned. So there's ways around it, but it's just something to be aware of. I don't remember where her skin begins and where her straps end. Let us check out ZBrush. Come on, ZBrush? No? No, that's ZBrush. What are you doing? Okay, anyway. Okay, it's like I thought. Yeah, so this area is skin. Oops, that's not where I wanted you to zoom at all. Look, buddy. Click, 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 click. Nope, still no? Okay. There we go. Okay. Okay, yeah, so that's where the straps sit. Alright, we're good. I use Maya for UV mapping. You definitely can. There's nothing stopping you. Just, again, use the tool that works best for you, but also don't be afraid to try other tools. It's like, use the tool that works for you, but you never know if you're going to come across another tool that you like more. So give stuff the time of day. Give it a go. And if you don't like it, then just stick with what you had, and that's fine. But if you like it more, then pick it up and use it. Okay, come on, cut, please, cut, 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 cut. There. Okay. Let's separate the hand off. Hand off. I'm just gonna hand off this piece of the mesh. Okay. And I'm gonna just take advantage of the kind of seams in here. So there's a number of ways you can treat this. I'm gonna separate all the skin parts from the rest of the clothing. If I didn't want to do that, I could also just kind of keep this all one piece and just have one seam that goes around the hand and fingers. But I do want to keep this separate just because that's just what we're doing at work these days. So I'm just staying consistent and keeping that habit. But a lot of my models you'll find to have the skin parts and the clothing parts separated. Or sorry, as one piece. And I use masking to kind of mask off the what's it called? I use masking to mask the skin material if I had like a skin shader or something like that. Hey Talden. Use the tool better for you, but never use Blender? No, use Blender if it works for you. It doesn't work for me, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't use Blender. I 100% support people using Blender. There was a joke? Okay. Yeah, because like if you want to use Blender, I highly recommend it. You're probably better for it because it's free and it's accessible to everyone. Yeah, and most studios like if you're really good, they'll be like, yeah, we'll let you learn the new tool, right? My current job we use Unreal. I've never used Unreal. I mean, like I've opened it and played around with it for a week, but my whole background is Unity, and I was working in TV animation. So they'll let you use other tools if they want you, and that's why I say just use whatever works for you, and make the best quality work you can. Hold on 1 second. What time is it now? 10:30, 10:40. I'm gonna go make some tea soon. Soon, not right away, but soon. Just a heads up. I switched from Maya to Blender because I'm just a hobbyist and couldn't justify the price. Yeah, that's valid. I think at this point, if I didn't have my perpetual license of Maya, I'd have to be using Blender on my free time because I could no longer justify having Maya because I'm no longer a freelancer. I like how people change from sculpt to modeling in Blender, and I can't do that with ZBrush. ZModeler is awful, and sculpt is in Maya kind of sucks. Can you reword that? I'm not really sure what the what you're asking or stating. Okay. I'm trying to be smart about where I cut this. I don't want to cut it right here because there's a lot going on in the model, and that's just gonna be a pain to texture. But also, this is a very visible part of the hand. That's okay. I'll do this. I will save this as well. I'll just save it as temp. Again, like the other files, I just overwrite things over and over again. I have no idea what is going on, but man, this is fun to watch. So what I'm doing here is I'm cutting my UVs. The great thing about this tool is you can visually see in 3D space where you're cutting the UVs. And that's what I love about this tool. So I can just, once I have these separated, I can just take them and I hit D and I just drop them. And now they're flat on the canvas. So if I go in this 2D mode, these are the ones that are unwrapped and they're in the flat space. And then we can deal with them later. I think he is saying that it's cool to model and sculpt in Blender without leaving the app. Oh, I see. That's fair. Yeah. Me on the other hand, like I've always said, I'm a big supporter of using the right tool for the job. Which I guess is why Blender doesn't really work for me, right? Because Blender does so many things, but in my opinion, it doesn't do any one thing the best. It's like being a generalist, right? Blender is the generalist of the software world. It does a lot of things, but it doesn't do them the best way because it does a lot of things. It's diverse, right? And the more diverse you are, the less powerful you can be in a specific area. I also hate ZModeler with a passion. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's good for small things, but I wouldn't model a big thing with ZModeler either. Like a bit ZModeler, but for me, can compare with Blender or Maya in the modeling part, but I love ZBrush. Yeah. Hey Sky Candy, if I haven't said hi. I guess I should say that I have no background in this. I'm a network engineer, but it's interesting to see you work. I see. There's a freaking video editor in Blender too. Yeah. When I learned about it, I was like, cool, but why? Yeah, that's kind of my impression too. I upgraded my decimated file just to... oh, uploaded, you mean? For some final thoughts on what is too late. Oh, you just want like thoughts on it, even though you can't change it. Yeah, sure. I can give you that feedback. Are you sure you want it though? Because like getting feedback at a point where you can't change it is not always something that you might want. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I would love this seam to be lower, but at the same time I wanted to cut it where the nail is. Yeah, I think this is what I'm gonna have to do, because that's just where the nail is. It's a lesser evil. Alrighty. I like to suffer, alright. Suffer. Okay. Alrighty. This hand is going to be way easier. This will feel good. It's just like, oop, done. You can probably just separate this as well. I did a lot of stuff on this model that I just regret wholeheartedly. It's like, why did I do this to myself? There's one other thing I need to check out, which is where's the seam on that? There's a seam on here, I think. Yeah, there it is. But where is it? It's right in the middle of the palm and up. So if I had to guess, it'd be here. I hope I'm not wrong. I really do, but I'm pretty sure that's it. If not, I'll have to do some work to fix it, but whatever. It's fine, I don't even care. Why would I care? Hey, Fido. Welcome in, my friend. How are you doing this fine day? There we go. Okay, and we'll just drop all that to the canvas. Boom. How's my ROM hacking buddy going? Doing all right. Getting this done. I can't take on the ROM hacking just yet because I got a lot of projects to go, but I definitely want to do that once I have narrowed down my workload a little bit. It's exciting though. I really want to check that out and play around with it because it looks like a good time. Yeah. Now, if this is a solid hand with no glove on it, how I would separate this is I would cut along this line all the way around the model. I realize now that I've made a mistake, which I also don't have to worry about because I'm doing it this way, but I would have loved to have this line here line up with this top edge. I would have loved these to line up, but I didn't do that. That was a mistake, but that's okay. Mistakes are made, but I just want to bring it up because it's good to know for you guys. And we'll just cut off all these fingers. You're well, good to hear. How's your game going? Is the character creation thing for your game? No, this is for a workshop that I'm just doing some teaching because I kept getting asked. People were like, how do you do your thing? Can you make more videos? Like, fine. So I thought this would be a nice 2-in-1 where I'm just explaining the whole process and then uploading it to YouTube. And then you have your videos and they're there. All the information is there. And we'll never do it again. Like modular body pieces? No. This is one solid character. If you type !VODs, you can see the whole all the videos up. Except for last week, I forgot to upload it. This is not for customization, no. Cool hand. Yeah, man. Coolerino. Oh, Fighter, did you ever end up getting that model to work in the Blender? Hi. Hello, Edge. I cut you. Look, buddy. I said I cut you. I'm gonna cut you. You can't escape. How dare you? I might have to do this in a different way. That did not work. That was not the edge that I wanted. It's this one. This is a pain in the butt. Sorry about that. There it is. Come on. Please? You're not gonna do this for me, are you? Is that it? Yes? Yes. Ha! Alright. I win. I win. Oh, we got another one though. We gotta do this twice. That's okay. I see how it is. Thanks, pass me. You're the best. I knew this time would come. Pass me knew it. Did the same thing anyway. It's like, yep. Screw you, future me. I'm just gonna cut this here, I guess. Alright, and if we split it, maybe we can, now that it's split, I can kind of get in there. One thing I wish you could do is just move UVs around in 3D space in the software, like individual UVs, but that doesn't always end up being the case. I need to frame this. Okay. Alright, I just need to get that edge there. Okay, come on. You know what I might do is I might just drop this and then fix it in 2D mode. Oh. Ah! Ha 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 ha! I win. I'm gonna save. It loaded up great, nice! I'm glad. It's happy little accidents, yeah. Today you could be past you and screw the future you too. Well, no, because we're doing it now. We're in it. There's no turning back. We've already started. Hey, Nas, welcome in. How are you doing, buddy? Doing all right. Just chilling? All right. You mean good? Okay. Not bad at all? Okay. Because I know that, like I said before, people always over-exaggerate how they're feeling. And alright is generally not great. Bros row? It's the homie town. That's right. Taldone. Now I'm curious if symmetry is going to work on this because they're very close, but they're technically not the same. So I might have to chop off the bottom here and then reattach it after. But we'll see. We'll see. I have plan. So first you have to separate it down the middle in order to make it symmetrical. So that's the first thing we're going to do. But at least now I get to show you some of the symmetry tools, which are awesome. Okay. All right. So now what we do is you go edit, find symmetry. Space. And once we finish the body as well, that's when I'm going to go grab T, okay? And there will be a little intermission, and then we'll carry on. But now that we've found the symmetry, I can now cut it. I usually, cut it a little bit, like where the lip starts wrapping inwards is where I'll cut the UVs. I try to hide the seam as best as possible, but if you go too far into the mouth, then you're going to end up with like really crunched UVs. So you gotta have to balance that. You have to balance UV stretching with seams. And you might not always get the solution that you want, but you try your best, right? This one I'm a little bit skeptical about. I'm considering either cutting it here or inside. I could cut it inside, but this part, this polygon strip would be very, very stretched, but you wouldn't get a seam. And I'm wondering if it's worth it. Because it could be. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. Because I could just make it the same color. It'll be fine. This is a funky UV tool you got there. Yeah, it's really cool. I like it a lot. Again, it's called UV layout. It has a little bit of funkiness to it though, because like you need the creator is very afraid of piracy. And you have to have a USB dongle in order to run the software. So you have to have like this physical USB that's plugged into your computer for the software to run. So when you buy the software, he sends it to you. It's kind of funny. That's very 80s, it is. This software also looks very 80s. Yeah. Like if I had not known about this software prior, because we use this at my old studio, and that's the only reason why I trust it. Yeah. Yeah, the texture artist at my old company was all about this software. You know how much costs the software? This software? This is like $100 or something like that. 100 and something. But again, it's been really worth it for me. It has sped me up exponentially. It makes this process way faster, so it's 100% worth it for me. Anything that'll speed up my workflow is I will jump on. What happens if there are bugs? What happens then? Wait, what? What do you mean about bugs? Every software has bugs. I'm back. Sorry, Chet. What did I miss? You didn't miss anything. You're good. We're just continuing on with our UVs. Doing the job. Updates, you just get all the updates. I think. I haven't been cut off yet. Maybe you do get cut off eventually. I'm not sure. You'll be back? Alright, no worries, Fido. The software is not in the USB. No, the USB is the key, yeah. Yeah. When I cut up the UVs, I try to find like the best places to cut it. And I usually try to tuck it away in the interior corners of things. So where fabric pieces overlap and stuff like that. That's where I tend to cut up the model because it's the least noticeable. That's not merged for some reason. I'll take note of that. I'll have to merge it later. Yeah, okay. Where do I want to cut you? Oh, I see. I see what I'm doing. Don't worry, guys. I know exactly what I'm doing. 100% of the time, never wavering, ever. That's right. I'm always 100% sure. That's right. Tasty UVs. Yes. Hey, Blair. How you doing? 3D Coat seems to do things very similar to this. I tried it. It just wasn't for me. Like the actual cutting process, yes, is similar, but the unwrapping portion is not. And it was very finicky and annoying. I have 3D Coat, but I have no idea how to use it for UVs. Is it good? I just do it in Blender. It's not fancy like this one, but it gets the job done. Blender does get the job done. I actually like the Blender UV tool better than the Maya UV tool, personally. But this is still my favorite UV tool from all the ones that I've tried. I do want to try Rism as a new one. I heard of like last year or something like that. That one I want to check out because that one looks good, but I haven't tried it yet. If I was still freelancing, I'd be more inclined. I guess I could still, because I still do like the odd freelance thing here and there, like if it's just like an art piece. So I can still write stuff off. That's one thing I learned from a friend in my previous job too. It's just like if you do just one freelance gig, you can still write off all your software. So it's actually in your benefit to do at least one freelance gig in a year, even if you're employed. I like my UV tools. Yeah, they're definitely, from what I hear, they're much better than the version that I have. Yeah. I prefer to do things with my UVs, yeah. I use a free add-on that makes Blender UV stuff much better. I used to prefer Maya for UV, but now I prefer Blender. Maybe I just got used to it. It is a matter of getting used to stuff too. Brought Nightshade and incorporated it into. Oh, really? Okay, I use Nightshade whenever I use Maya, but it's built in now, huh? Oh, nice. Yeah. I don't know what Nightshade is like compared to what it was when I used it, or the version I have, I guess. I'm also realizing that these two sides are in fact symmetrical. Or not. Oh, damn it. Okay. Fine, I see how it is. Did I add a seam there? Did I? I don't think I did. I hope I did, but I don't think so. I doubt it. Look, ZBrush. Look, I know you need cache data, but still, I want you to work now. We're gonna hide that cape. Is there a seam? No. No. I might add that in Substance though. I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna add one. I'm gonna put it in there anyway. Screw it. We do what we do. I hope this other side is symmetrical. Will I get lucky? Yes! Alright. Hey Toast, welcome in. Will you put all the pieces that are mirrored in the same UV space? No. UV tools, but... Oh, that's kind of... I'll have to refine you, Toast. I don't have my overlay because we're doing workshop stuff. I can put it on at the end of the stream though when we start doing reviews and stuff. It's okay. Old man with the stick. I'll add him. I can add him at the end of stream for like the last hour when we do the reviews. If that's satisfying enough. Either that or I can refund you your points. Where do I want to cut this now? I have no idea. I guess I'm going to cut it here and then up along that edge. That's the best solution I can think of. All right. That's what we're going to do. Do it. All right. Oh, that didn't cut. Hey, buddy. I said cut. There we go. We're just going to drop that now. There we go. Everything is dropped. Gonna lurk? All right, Toast. Enjoy your lurk. All right, so now that we have everything out here on the canvas, we can start unwrapping or folding stuff. And you just, press F and it starts unwrapping. If you hit Shift F, it'll kind of pull it out into like a circle first, and then unwrap it. And already you can see some issue areas with unwrapping, and this will be the same in most tools, and it's that this kind of armpit area. Now, what ends up happening is because the arms are down a little bit, you don't have this issue as much for the T-pose character. You still have it a little bit, but the armpit gets a little bit squished as far as UVs go. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pin these out and straighten them out. And I know you can do this with Nightshade, so anyone who's using Maya should be able to do it as well. And I'll just kind of straighten all these out, right? Now, you'll notice here the blue means that it has more UV space than other areas relative to how much like. Okay, sorry, I lost my voice for a second. So it's based off of volume or surface area in 3D space, right? So if it takes up more 3D space, then it needs more UV space, right? But if it has, if it's blue, that means that it has more UV space than it needs for the given area that it has. However, I give areas like the armpit, underneath the armpit, a little bit more because that'll compensate for any stretching, because the arm will inevitably get raised, and when it does, it'll require more UV space. So I tend to make sure that it has the space that it needs. Hey Pear, I'm doing a bit of a workshop today, and we are going over UV mapping. How are you? Having a stroke? No. But I'm not used to talking this much, so it becomes difficult after a while. Yeah. I hope you're doing well, Pear. Okay, so I think that'll do pretty well. One thing to keep in mind too is it's often a good idea to make sure that these UVs line up. I probably won't have time to actually do that, but maybe I'll go over it on a piece or two just to kind of show. I'm doing tired, I feel you. Drink water? Yeah, I have some water, but yeah, it doesn't help enough. You know. I'm also going to be separating all these like skin pieces out as well, but I'll do that at the end. Yeah. Okay, I want to be careful about this stuff. I'm not a big fan of things like flaring out too much. In this case, I'll give it a go. It's not because it's not too bad, but sometimes I'll try to like straighten things out and keep them closer together so that it's just easier to pack the UVs later. Yeah, but I'm sorry, I lost the context. It was great? Okay. If you say so. Alright, yeah. Okay, so this is an example of the splaying that I'm not okay with. So these fingers are splaying out. I don't like that. I'm gonna actually use the ruler tool or whatever you want to call it to kind of straighten out these UVs. Again, if things flare out too much, it becomes very difficult to pack the UVs because you get all this like wasted space in between, in this case, the fingers. So if I do this, it keeps it all nice and packed, right? And it's easier to put all together. Okay, this one's going to be a little bit tricky. Here's another little trick that I like to do when it has these issues. See where it's in the corner of the fingers are a little bit messed up. We just straighten these out. This one is not doing what I want. We'll just hit P to pin it. There we go. So now that it's pinned. Great. and it's straight. So what I end up doing here is I'll just take a point like this, and I'll take a point like that. And because these are always straight, I can just pull it out. And what it does is it keeps the spacing that I want between the fingers. And I just do this enough to kind of like make sure that there's enough space. I will have to adjust it manually a little bit, but I get you know, a good ways there by doing this. Okay, so now that I have this, I just go in here and I just start like cleaning up these things. There's gonna be a little bit of stretching inside the corner of the fingers. And again, this is a kind of balance, right? It's just like, it's a balance based off of how many seams do you have and stretching, right? And I think inside the little crevices of the fingers, it's okay to have a little bit of stretching. I'm generally fine with that. And I'd rather have that than have, you know, seams everywhere. I could also separate these fingers though, now that I'm thinking about it. You know, actually, in this case, I think it's good to separate these fingers. In the if I had the whole hand attached, because I was able to separate it because of the glove, or the wraps, I should say. But if I had the whole hand connected, then I would have kept it as together, and I would have dealt with that. I would have just left it with the stretching. But because I have already separated these fingers, I can kind of get away with this. So yeah, in this case, it's a little different. But at least I explained both the reasonings. And you'll do this a lot too when you're working, right? You'll be like, you'll kind of go back and forth on things and say like, well, does this work better or does this work better? What is the best solution for this particular case? And there's no one answer for anything. So we're just going to unfold this, and I'm going to hit Control-Shift-I. There. This will just straighten out all the edges. If it's already very close to being straightened out, I usually just straighten it out entirely. It's just easier to pack for one, and also if I wanted to like clean up the normals, I could probably just like stretch it across and stuff like that. So it's all nice and easy. Similarly here, I believe this one is also. I actually don't even know what's up on this. I believe this is the arm. These are pretty straight though. So anything that, again, like anything that's close to being straight, I just straighten out because it's just, again, it's just easier to pack because it's easier to pack squares in these really weird rounded shapes. So that's, you know, a general rule of thumb, I guess. This one kind of needs to be a little bit curved because I know this is the wrap that goes around the arm, and it'll stretch really funny if I do anything with it. So I'll just leave it be. Actually, maybe the outer edge here I can do. Same with the other arm, or with that other part of the arm I did. I could probably straighten these out. And part of this is also being anal too. Like, I think this particular change is just so minimal that it's not really worth it. But you know, I am who I am. I really like if they are straight, it's easier. Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, it's true. The closer you are to the norm, the easier your life is. Yeah. We're just going to do the same thing that we did with the other shoulder. Unfortunately, both shoulders are slightly different because I like pain. That's right, Cable. Pain blob. Pain blob. Pain is your new name? That's right. Yes, that's right. I like to suffer. How do you straight UVs in Maya? You should be able to. If you have Nightshade, like I've been informed in the newer Mayas apparently have Nightshade built in. There's a ruler tool, and you can just select edges and it'll straighten them out. But I'll show you how I normally go about things in Maya with the tools that I have available to me. I'll go over that right after this, okay? I hope that sounds good. Yeah, no worries. The face is going to be the biggest pain. But yeah, I'm going to get all this done. Then I'm going to grab T. And then I'll show you how to straighten out UVs in Maya. And anything else you guys want me to bring up specifically, we can. But we are coming very close to the end of our lesson for today. Our lesson. Here I am. Full of myself. All right. Pretending to be a teacher. Okay. Just unfold these fingers. I could probably have welded the two sides together. I still might. Let's do that. The fewer the seams, the better, right? Oops, wrong thing. You know what? I'm not going to do that. That's fine. Hey fish, how you doing? It's not quite like Nightshade. I think many buttons have changed, but people like flipped normals have done tutorials about that. Okay. More of a teacher than any of my actual teachers. Staff Sensei? Oh man. Hey Jason. Hey Chaz. But yeah, I don't know. I do want to give, like, teachers deserve a little bit more credit than we're giving them here. And I noticed that as I'm doing this, because like one of my biggest complaints when I was in school and learning is that, you know, the teachers don't really like go through the whole process. They're like, go learn on your own. They just tell you about stuff. But it's a lot of work to do this. Like just going through this and trying to like get everything ready for you guys and create a whole thing along with you has been a lot of work, and it's very trying, right? And it's hard for me to keep up, especially when I have a whole bunch of other things I have to deal with. So like it makes sense. Like they can't do that every year, like twice a year they're doing the same thing over and over again, right? So I get it. It would be nice if they did like they demoed a little bit more, but at least from my experience, I don't know what other schools are like, but from my experience, I didn't get a lot of like demoing. There's a lot of self-learning. But it's hard. It's hard to go through all this every time. Fun of my accent cable. There are instructors that just aren't suited for position. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, they're. I don't know. I don't like to bash on people. That's all. Feels bad, and I don't want to be that kind of person because that gives you backlash. I've had some really great teachers and just some that I'm like, how did you? Yeah, that's fair. Uh-oh. I hate when that happens. Like, wait, no, come back. I'm not sure this is a good idea. Yeah, I'll try it. Why not? I just want to make sure that I have a nice non-bent up edge here. Again, any unwrapping tool is going to have a little bit of stuff. That's why I always say don't just use automation and call it a day. Clean up after yourself a little bit, because computers aren't there yet. They'll replace us eventually, but they're not quite capable just yet. But for the majority of things, all my teachers were pretty great. Just like 1%. Yeah, I feel you. In my defense, teachers do get paid to teach you. If they send you to learn on your own, it's like going to a job and telling your boss to do it on his own. It's true. But they spend time doing other stuff, which is like grading and course planning and stuff like that, as opposed to actually like doing demos. So it's not like they're doing nothing, right? I mean, not every time it's the teacher's fault. Sometimes the college wants them to teach things. Yeah, yeah. There's also like a curriculum that you have to follow. The system itself is broken. But you know, that's just how it is. All right. The fortunate thing too, though, is that this stuff is the harder part of the UV process. The face and the hands, similar with retopo, are the most painful parts to UV. Hair is also a bit of a pain in the butt, but it's not. I'd say that this area is a lot worse. So once we do this, it's pretty straightforward, which is nice. Teachers do need to be treated better in this country. They sacrifice a lot for, yeah. The system is broken. Stuff is about to create a revolution. Right. I don't know. Like, there's a such thing as being too organized and unwavering, right? It's just when it comes to stuff like that, it's very stiff, and it doesn't really lend itself well to new systems or new systems isn't the right word, but new topics, I guess, right? And you know, game art education is pretty new and isn't even really recognized in the education system at all. It's always labeled under something else. Even when I moved to the States and got a job here, my job technically doesn't exist to the government. I'm a graphic designer on paper. So, you know, that's just how the system is. I don't exactly know what I'm looking at, but it's cool. Oh, yeah, I'm just unwrapping the model. Yeah, so according to the government, I'm a graphic designer. Okay. There's no job listing of 3D artists in this age of tons of. Yep, there is not. It's not a category. Go for it, dude. Totally. When I tell people that my bachelor's, they always go, "Come again?" Yeah. Like what? So again, like that's why like the education system's all screwed up, because they just don't even recognize what we do as a thing. Like what we do technically doesn't exist at all. It's very silly. All right, so for the face here, this is a little bit tricky. I have this very wonky process where now I want to make sure that things don't get too stretched and that there's enough space for the nose and stuff. So I'm being very careful about this, and I'm kind of like unwrapping a piece at a time and then going down the head until it's how I want it to be. But you can see here, this is a big mess, and it's going to be a huge pain, but we're going to deal with it. So the next step in the process, I want to, now that I've gotten most of the head, kind of this upper part of the face unwrapped, I'm just going in and I'm going to give more space for the eye. I tend to close the eyes in the UV space so that they get more texture space, because again, the eyes are going to be blinking, and I want to make sure that there's as little stretching as possible. And to do that, I need to make sure that they have enough UV space so that they can have textures to support the deformation. Now you're still going to get some issues. I may have, like, a lot of the times people will actually model their eyes almost closed. I don't like doing that just because it's really hard to see what you're doing. But it's probably a better idea. But I do this as like an alternate. And then if the normals are causing this weird noise, I'll just go into the normal map in Photoshop and just kind of wipe away the anything that's causing problems. There needs to be update of their standards in that instance. All of these games and movies, and they put it under umbrella of graphic designer. Yeah. And as far as associate goes, it's basically graphic design. So I just tell people because it's easier. Yeah. I went to school for information technology. I'm an IT guy, according to my school. Fancy. I'm sure you can do most of the IT work. I don't know. I don't really know what's involved. I didn't like I don't do a lot of networking and stuff, so that's part of that. That's a bit out of my wheelhouse. But the school's reasoning for, or not the school's reasoning, but my teacher's reasoning for it being underneath the IT umbrella is that you're kind of able to kind of help all the departments or be part of all the departments, because it was a very open, broad program that just taught you everything, right? So like I learned everything from, you know, modeling, rigging, animation, graphic design was there, web development, like everything, programming. Gotta run. Happy messing with all your 3D artists. Have a good one, Fish. One would think that after Disney and Pixar, they would add all the artist jobs to the system. No. And that was decades ago. Again, you know, major systems like that, they're slow and unwavering. Because they're just, well, I hate to say it, but they're run by slow and unwavering people. Because they're from a different era. that's just kind of how it goes. Run by a bunch of boomers. I mean, yeah. It's very hard to keep up. The older you get tired. You don't really want to learn new things. That's how it goes. Sorry, that got a little existential. Yeah. Sorry, anyone watching the VOD too. I'm rambling now, but at this point, it's this is very like just manual labor trying to get all these pieces in. I'll talk more about process once there's new things to mention. And anyone in chat too, if you have like specific questions about a thing that I'm doing, ask away, because I need topics. Spoken like a true boomer? Yeah. You know it, Cable. I still have a little bit of mileage left, not to worry. I'm still learning some new stuff. For now. Alright, so now I'm just going to pin this upper area. Oops. Oh, come on. I'm going to save. As soon as something stops acting, this is a rule for me in any software. As soon as it stops acting like I expect it to, I know something's wrong. And then I save immediately. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start pulling out parts of the face. Right, and start getting it into a position that I want. And I'm also going to go in here and I'm going to move this down. And I'm going to do symmetry here. And that way I can make sure that the center line is pretty close to where I want it to be. There. I have a question. So after you put your fish in the oven, how much time is up? Cooking fish? Probably about, like, it depends on how much fish you're putting in there, but I'd say it's about like half an hour, something like that. 20 minutes, or no, more than 20 minutes. So like half an hour, 40 minutes. Might be overcooking it, but you'll get a decent, you know. I'd rather overcook it a little bit than undercook it. I'm not a very good cook, by the way. If you haven't guessed yet, I'm a really bad cook. Thanks to you. Now I can eat good fish. There you go. So, are you saying that you hate sushi and people who like sushi? No. He was asking if I was to cook fish, how long you'd cook it for. If you don't cook fish, then you have to have it like a special grade of fish that doesn't kill you. I love sushi. Sushi's great. I would never try to prep it myself though, because I would do it wrong. And I'd get very, very sick. I mean, the better question is like, do you think you're assuming my preferences here? How dare you? How dare you assume my preferences? Hot rolls in state? I've never had a hot roll sushi. I've never tried that. Okay. We can see that in the chin area, I'm losing density as I expected. I might pull this down a little bit, and I'll probably stick a pin here to kind of make sure that it kind of holds a little bit more density. I'll be pinning a lot just to kind of make sure that everything stays where I want it to be. In the end, I might even straighten these UVs out, but I'll probably do that in Maya. It's probably easier to do it there. There's some things that are definitely easier to do in Maya, like actually laying out the UVs, which is ironic because this is called UV layout. I actually prefer to lay out the UVs in Maya. I just like to unwrap them here. This software has a lot of auto packing tools, but you know me, I'm very much against auto tools. And not because like I'm afraid of being replaced by a computer, because I know that's inevitable. But it just doesn't do it. It just does a bad job. One day it'll do a good job, and this will no longer be required. But today is not that day. Another thing to be aware of is that the color of these polygons can be a little bit deceitful, because it could be it could have the right surface area, but it could be very stretched in one axis. So see how these are super thin? They technically have the right surface area because they do, but they have it in the wrong direction, right? So these polygons are actually supposed to be super tall and thin, right? So these are actually stretched in the x-axis, or whatever axis this would be in UV space. I guess this is U and this is V. I think vertical is V and then horizontal is U, I forget. Something like that. Are you busy trying to replace drivers and cashiers? We don't even exist as a job. I'm not worried about being replaced. It's true. True. I often say this too, because like I always hear people saying this. Is just like, oh yeah, we're gonna get replaced by computers, and I'm like, every job will get replaced by a computer eventually. It's quite possible. But at the end of the day, people are gonna need something to do, and the only thing that people are gonna have left is hobbies, right? So anything that's artistic or creative would be most likely to survive the era of automation. That's an n-gon? There's no n-gons here. Look, buddy. How dare you? It's just a very, very stretched polygon. Yeah, no, there's no n-gons on the face. There might be n-gons in other areas, and I have to double check. I haven't done that yet, because I haven't had time. But definitely not in the face. That is the one place that I make sure that I that's the face area is the one place that I don't do triangles, because there's a lot of deformation that happens on the face. Unless I really need to, or I'm making a model that's particularly low poly, then of course there'll be triangles. But if it's something that's a little bit higher fidelity, then I would not have triangles on the face. Remember that time you forgot to check for n-gons in that wish model, and you said you would get fired for that? Yes. Of course I remember. I stand by that. But that would only apply when you pass it off to the rigger, and we haven't gotten to rigging yet, in this one at least. But I definitely make that mistake. Like those mistakes happen. I think they're unacceptable, but they happen. I feel like shit whenever I make any kind of mistake that's remotely like that. So it's just how it is. Has it ever happened in production? It has, not in a long time. It has. Sometimes you just slip up and you're working really fast, right? Ridges might be like more than your coworker that Auto-retopo is. Oh, riggers must like me. Hopefully. Generally, generally people say good things about me, so that's good. The only time I got reprimanded was when I voiced my opinion about changing things after the work was already done and rigged and animated. That was the only time that they're like, yeah, don't. I was like, well, you know what? You can blow all your budget on redoing every single department. Idiots. Yeah. That's why stuff like OT and like low wages happen, because it's all wasted. I don't know. It really pisses me off because I'm very much against like all the overtime and stuff, because it doesn't do anything for anyone. It just makes people do a crappy job that hate themselves, and nothing good comes out of it. And then you're tired afterwards, so all the work you do after it is just completely screwed. And then people are like, why are we doing all this overtime? It's because we're doing the same thing over and over again, and nothing gets approved, and no one can be decisive. Right? Make a decision. It's not that hard. I'm gonna hate myself either way. It's fair, most artists hate themselves. For some reason. Alright. So again, like I said, this is a very like repetitive process. It's all about just making sure, oops, wrong button, that everything's just kind of in place, and just locking things, because you don't want stuff moving around as you're trying to fix areas. I love the pinning tool. It's very handy. Whoops, keep hitting the wrong button. We hate ourselves and we value more a person who does a worse job than we do. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. It's I've always been like a big well, fan isn't the right word. I've always been fascinated by psychology and why people think the way they do. My guess is it's just mostly around the prejudices of artists, right? It's just like not a real job. People look down on it. It's very hard to be successful. Well, at least it appears to be. People give up very easily because no one supports them. So it's easy to hate yourself. You get to make money having fun. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, it's all that nonsense, right? It's sad. People think art is not a real job, then they go and have an office job and work 9 hours a day working on Excel sheets that can be filed by a monkey. I don't know. People have different ways to live, right? I think it's important as artists as well, or as people, to kind of also treat people the same way, though, right? So like, we can't just say, oh, we want people to think our job is a real job, and then say that their job is not real, right? So that's something to be careful of as well. Because that's just a little bit hypocritical. Oops. Uh-oh. I'm gonna save now. And this is the other thing about the splaying out. I want to just pull that in so that it's not splaying out. There we go. And this one obviously has to splay out a little bit because it's overlapping. There. Pinning tools are very powerful. Very, very powerful. Respect to all jobs, yeah. UVs look like scary spider, yeah. They are scary. UVs are very scary. I used to work in an office that designed computers. We're next to accountant computers. I used to talk with professional accountants that told me their job today could be done by anyone with basic day of training. Yeah. That's what it is. And I feel bad hearing that kind of thing. Life sucks for those who want to have fun. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Unhappiness comes with desire. Okay. That was the hardest part that we just did. Alright. So now we're just going to quickly unwrap the rest of it because it's all easy from here. Isn't that nice? I always like to get the hard part out of the way first. Also, I want to show you guys the hard part, and then I can do the easy stuff off of stream, right? I should probably show you guys a little bit about unpacking. That might be worthwhile. I've always thought it was cool to be able to tile those UVs in a tile sheet. I'll have to try, maybe try it. What do you mean? Yeah, that does remind me, like, I do want to go over laying out your UVs as well. So I might just do, I'd have to redo it again after, but I might just pack the UVs that we have done so that I can show you the process. If I cut this off, that makes these pieces symmetrical. And I can use symmetry on them. There. And I can just reattach these later. When I did my UVs on my first character, it was a mess because I had them all different UV sheets. I didn't pack them. Oh, so you just had like a custom texture for every part? After that, I wanted to learn how to do it way better. Fortuitously, you began this series. Oh, awesome. I'm glad. What plugin are you using right now for mapping? I see Maya in the BG, but oh, this is a different software. It's called UV Layout, but it has a plugin that kind of goes from Maya to UV Layout and back again. So after this part, you will go through texturing and rigging as well. Yes, and animation and implementation into Unity, and we'll get the character running around in circles. The whole shebang. My second, or I think third character turned into a nightmare character. That's how it goes sometimes. Ah, the butt UVs. That's... There we go. What reminds you? It was the retopo screwed me in that. Retopo can be hard. All right, we'll just send this over. Okay. So now this is UV, and I'll save. UV editor. There it is. There's our UVs. So the only thing that I got to do is I got to weld this together. So I'm just going to do that real quick. I'll select our edges. Right. And we'll just, oops, I'll hide that. And we should be able to weld it. Oops, not with that. I use the one that doesn't move the UVs in this case. There we go. And I can reattach these guys as well. just to see where make sure that everything's welded, I'll just use this this tool here. It shows me where the cuts are. Snap that in there, and we'll do the same. There. And that, as they say, was that. Okay. So, also finally got time to work on a bit on my Ruby yesterday. Nice! If you want to share your progress with us, I'd love to see it. Although, I'll look at it after we're done with the workshop stuff. But I'll look at it at the end of the stream, if you want to share what you've got so far. Okay, so cool. We've done that. And who was asking? I think Ike, you were asking about straightening UVs, or was it Talbin? In Maya, right? So if you want to straighten UVs in Maya, that's a good example. I would normally do this in UV layout, but I could do it here just to demonstrate. I can UV this strap, all right? Yeah. Yeah, let's do it. So UV master, UV editor cylindrical. Let's rotate this guy. How do I do this again? It's been a while. No, not like that. Where's the rotate? There used to be a way to rotate this. Whoa. What's going on here? UV layout, or sorry, the UV editor is doing something crazy. Why is it showing an outline of my other UVs? That is wacky. Oh, there's a rotate. There we go. Okay. That scared me a lot. I'm gonna save. It's fine. It's because I hit undo while I was using this editor, and I had the previous UV selected before, and it had it in memory or something. That's my guess. Anyway, that's wacky. That is crazy. Okay, and then I'm just gonna cut this. Excuse me. Okay. There. So if you want to straighten out UVs, Nightshade has this lovely tool where if you select an edge that is straight, you can use the ruler. Oh, thanks for shoving that back in my face. Not so lovely tool. This doesn't work over. Okay, yeah. Right. Anyway, it's supposed to work. There. Okay. I had to do it with UVs. So basically, you select your UVs, right? And then you use the ruler. It only works on one edge, right? So you have to make sure that you don't have any extra nonsense. I think in this case, I would probably have to like add an extra edge loop to this temporarily to straighten it, which is not ideal, but that's what I would have to do. I'm actually curious, if I take a part of this, will it work? Hold on. It's been a while since I've done this. Yeah, see, it doesn't like that, so what I actually have to do is I have to go in here, add an edge loop, like a freaking sap. All right. And then I can straighten it out. All right, now it's straight. And I would do the same for the other piece. right? And then I can delete the edge. And then I would go in and I'd use tools like this flatten option. And you can just flatten it. But anyway, it's stuff like that. That's why I don't like UVing in Maya, because it's like extra garbage. Yeah. That's how I do it. That was the UV camera. I didn't get much done, just a few weeks to the rib cage and the base mesh, and primarily mass of the foot. I'm kind of wondering about the shape of my leg at the moment. That's fair. Gotta go. Thanks for the stream. Have a good day, everyone. Have a good one, Blair. Thanks for hanging out. And straightening UV layout just works better. Yeah. So in UV layout, you can mark an edge as B straight, and it just straightens it when you try to unfold, which is great. And you can have multiple edges straight at the same time, and you can lock it like that. You can't do that in Maya. At least not in my version of Maya. And I do not want to get a subscription. I'm going to stick to my Maya 2016 license until I die. That a little bit. Anyway, great. So I think that's a good chunk. I'm going to go make some tea real quick, and I'll be right back. Okay, guys? And meanwhile, you can all look at this lovely art made by friends and other streamers and stuff. Great. Thank you everyone for your patience. I'm back. All right, so now I only have one more thing, or maybe two more things I want to go over for our stream today. So if anyone has anything specific that they would like me to explain how I would unwrap it, feel free to ask. But I will go over a couple things. I think the first thing I'm going to do is, because we don't have all our UVs available, I'm going to do one more thing first, and then I will go over some specific unpacking. Okay. So what I do at this point is I now create a new material, assign new material, Lambert, and I call it material checker. And the reason I do this is, one, it allows me to identify what I've already UV'd and what I haven't. So when I go in here is I go File. And it's very important not to use this checker pattern because it's not actually accurate. You're better off using a texture of a checker. So I would go in here and get your checker pattern. And I set it and I tile it, whatever amount you want, but just enough to see the squares. So I'll just set it to like, oops, that is offset, not repeat. And we'll set that to 60 and 60. So you can kind of see the squares, right? So now this is going to do two things. One is going to show you the stretching, right? So you can see here that we have some vertical stretching here, which is not ideal, but it's inevitable in the face. You're going to have a bit of stretching around the nose and around the mouth and the chin because it's a protrusion, right? And things get a little bit pinched underneath. But I'd rather have that than a bunch of seams. So it's kind of a balance of what you want, what you can do. So the next thing that I would do is we're just going to unwrap a single part just to kind of give the idea, because I don't want to keep you guys forever. So I'm going to unwrap this piece. Or yeah, sure, why not? We'll send this to UV Lab. Just to kind of demonstrate what the other nice thing about having well, this has an extra edge it doesn't need. I can get rid of that. But I'll just cut this, drop it. Go on this, and I'll just unfold it, and we'll just send it over. So now that's UV. I'm going to assign our UV material to it, and you can see that this is way more dense than this. Oh, I was supposed to talk about textile density. Oh, and Cable just reminded me. Hey, Cage, welcome in. How many UV maps and what would go into each map? Good question. All right, I'll cover that now. I'll cover both of those things now. I'm officially sleeping as bad as you. Oh, you only slept 6 hours yesterday? Why? You were doing fine. 5. Oh. Worse than me then. I get 1 more hour than you did. Oh, maybe not last night. Last night was terrible. I wouldn't think I slept much at all last night. Okay, so okay, yeah, so basically that was it. So now I made sure that they're the same size. Now we don't do that here. That's right. Okay, so you were asking about textile density, right? This, in my opinion, applies more to environments than characters. Like, at least from my experience, most people don't give a shit. They only really care when you're working on like really low poly stuff. And that, yeah, that's when it matters. But environment artists, they tend to care. But my mic cut. Okay, good. I was just waiting for it to re-register. Anyway, it did cut, yeah. Don't worry about it. So what you do is you set a meter cube, right? And this can be whatever you want. You just got to be consistent, right? So this is, a meter would be 100, right? And you say anything that fits within a meter gets a 1K map, right? So if I was to do that, and then I said another one, and this is going to be a 50. This would get a 15 by 15. And then if we had another one that fit into a 200, right? This would get a 2048. So if we were to look at this, so you get, this would get a, well, you know, I'm going to say this gets a 512, right? And then this gets a 256 by 256. But it's half, right? And then this is 1024 by 1024, right? And obviously she wouldn't take up this whole cube. Probably if you like broke her in half and then put her in side by side, she'd probably fit in this. In this scenario, she'd probably get about a 512 by 512 map. However, I tend to give characters a little bit more density than environments. So if it's a character, I would say like, oh, I'd still give this a 2048 because it's a character and you see it up close all the time. And it has a lot more details going on. There's a lot of things. So like, it's not like it's not a catch-all, but this is like a generality. Is like if the object fits in these cubes, then that's the texture size that it gets. That's kind of how texture density works, or texel density. Like that's kind of how people judge it. On smaller scale projects, all I do is I assign the same checker pattern to everything and make sure that the checkers are a similar size. That's what I normally do. And if they're a similar size, that means that they're getting similar texture spaces. So if you assign the same checker pattern on all of them, then you know that it's getting the right amount, right? So say if I assign the same checker pattern to this, right? You can see that these checkers are huge, right? Which means that compared to the character, it is not getting as much texture space. Because this is tiling the same amount, but there's less texture in it, right? Sorry, there's like basically less details. So this same square is now stretched this size, and you can see that it's blurry, right? And this is crisp. And that's because it's bigger, right? So if I zoomed into these squares here, they're just as blurry, but because they're smaller, you don't see that blur, right? So that's the idea of texel densities. You want all the, like, if you were to tile a checker pattern over everything, the squares would be the same size. And that's kind of like the general idea of what you're doing, because otherwise you're going to have some textures that are stretched and some that are not. Now, if I said, like, if I needed to take this cube and assign another material to it where the checker size was double, so say I'm going to just do this in a cheap way, but we're going to pretend here. If I take this texture and I double its UVs, right? That's not what I wanted. What? Oh, there we go. Okay, so I doubled it. That's still not enough, so I'll double it again. Okay. Now it's closer. It's now too small, but it's closer. So now we can say I doubled this twice. So now this actually needed a 2048 map because this was a 512. And the character has a 2048. And now they're similar square sizes. Does that make sense? So I make cubes and see what tile it needs. You basically define this at the beginning of your project. You say that anything that's inside a meter cube gets a 512 map. And you just say that. You define it at the beginning of your game, right? And then anything that's double that size obviously needs twice as big a map, right? And obviously it's not going to be perfect either, because some things have more complexity than other things. But it's a general way that you get at least somewhat close, and they're not like, you don't have one object that's super blurry and one object that's super crisp, right? And Connor O'Block's Games, hey, how are you doing? Welcome in. Yeah. Anyway, so that's texel density. You have to tile it, yeah. Yeah. So basically, that's what I did here, right? So remember how I scaled this up? That was tiling it, right? So that I know that this is a big, say this is a big environment piece, and it's a big chunk of wall, and you want it to have the same kind of texel density as the player. Well, I know that I have to tile the texture on it because I can't, unless I had like this giant 4K texture map, which you don't want in a game, I have to tile it, right? So how many times do I tile it? I'll tile it 4 times. So I had to tile it 4 times, or twice, sorry. I had to double it twice, right? And now because it's tiling, it can go over the UV space. It doesn't have to be within there because it's tiled. And that's kind of how I'll treat environment pieces that have tiling textures, is I'll just scale up their UVs as many times as I need it to tile. You could also tile it in the engine, but I don't recommend doing that. And the reason I don't is because then you have to have a custom material for every object. You have to have a custom material because you have to tile it a different amount for each object, which means it's a whole new material. But if you scale it in the UVs, then you can use the same material across multiple objects. And ornament the wall cannot be tiled. You have to find a way. You have to find a way. That's the limitation of games. Either that, or you use either that, or you separate the wall into different chunks and do something like use UDIMs, which I rarely see in games. But you could technically use UDIMs as well, which is basically it allows you to use multiple UV tiles, and you can get a separate texture for each UV tile. So basically you'd have 4 2K maps on one object. And you can do stuff like that as well. But usually you're going to want to find a way to make a tile. And then break up the surface with custom objects. It's a little out of scope, so I'll bring it out at the end. But I could pull up the environment I was working on for my game and show you that. Yeah, feel free to ask me about it too. All right, what was the other thing that I need to cover? Oh, how many UV maps? Okay. Oh yeah, that's what you're saying, Admiral. Okay, yeah. Okay, so UV maps, it's different for every project as well, right? So it depends on what you're doing and what your limitations are, right? So I've seen a huge variety of different things. So like I was looking at some models from The Last of Us, and they had a separate material or texture for, yeah, so it was a separate texture, so it had to be a separate material for every object. So the shoes had a material, the pants had a material, the shirt had a material, the jacket had a material, the skin had a material, and I think they separated the hands and the face because they wanted all that detail, which is nuts. And you can't always get away with that, right? In some games you're going to have more limitations. So if you're working on mobile, you cannot get away with multiple textures on a mobile game most of the time, unless you have very few models on the screen at the same time. So you're going to want to put everything together, right? And that at that point, yeah, so everything would be in the same texture sheet. But you can have variations. So basically you have to find, similarly to your polygon budget, you have to find the limitations of the system you're working on. My general rule of thumb when I'm just working for myself for fun is to make my life easier, I like to separate objects based off of different material properties, right? So if I need a separate material for, say, the hair because it has anisotropic shading, it's going to have its own texture sheet and its own material. So I break out the hair into its own material. You might want to also do that for the skin as well. But generally, I keep the skin and the body and the clothing and stuff all together because I don't use true subsurface scattering on my characters. I kind of fake it with emissiveness. So I don't really need a separate material for the skin. But you could do it. Similarly, the eyes get their own texture because I use displacement, and I have a specific material that I use the displacement on for the eyes. So they also get their own material. And that's kind of how I break it down. Does that make sense? I can't guarantee that, Lone Wolf. This might just be for demoing. But we'll see. Who knows? And that's the reason why the game runs bad in PS3. Yeah, so it's like, Yeah, sometimes they'll be tailored for a specific system and then forced onto another machine, and they just don't work, right? Okay, so that about covers most things. I think the last thing I want to do is cover UV layout, right? So let's lay out some UVs, okay? And if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, I'm going to duplicate this because this is going to be temporary. Obviously, I would have to have everything UV before I lay it out, but I'm just going to lay out this one body part because we don't have enough time to do all of it, obviously, right? And I just want to demo it. So we're going to do that. So what I'm gonna do here is when I'm laying out, say I had this is all the parts for my model, right? The first thing I do is I go through all my parts and I say, okay, where do I want more detail? So we were talking about textile density earlier, and this is why I say characters are a little bit different. Is a lot of the times there will be favoring towards what the player will see more. So for instance, if your character is going to be in a lot of cinematics, right, you're probably going to see the face a lot. And if you're going to see the face a lot, that means, well, we're going to give it a little bit more space. So I actually scale this up so it gets a little bit more space than the rest of the model, right? So you can see here now that the squares here are a bit smaller than other areas of the model. And that's just because I wanted to basically hold up more for close-up shots. So basically a lot of, like, if you're having dialogue sequences, people are going to be looking at the face. So you're going to want to give it a little bit more detail. Similarly, like little props like this, sometimes I'll give them a little bit more if they have lots of little tiny details and I want them to hold up, right? So like sometimes I'll say like, oh, this needs a little bit more space because I need it to, hold on, I'm going to duplicate this as well. I just realized I don't want to be, oops. I don't want to be wrecking my main stuff for the demo purpose. But yeah, I want to give it a little bit more as well because it's a high detail object and maybe it's important to the character, right? So that kind of stuff. Once I've decided that, I go in and I start placing things around. I usually place, like I try to figure out what the most square object is, right? And I place those in there. I find anything that's symmetrical that doesn't really need to be have a custom texture. I would say that the ears don't really need them, and the inner eye and inner mouth don't really need them either. So we can mirror that stuff over. I also want to make sure that I have the right side. I always mirror the right side. I don't think it matters as long as you're consistent. Try to keep it all the same side being mirrored over, because it's very annoying to texture something, and because in Substance Painter when you're texturing, you won't be able to texture on the mirrored side. And I'll explain why momentarily. Right? And then what I do is I'm going to just place this stuff in there. Hold on, let me check if anyone has any questions. It does, I just have always been frustrated when texturing about having separate maps and which ones to separate. Do you feel like you'd still be frustrated knowing what I just told you, or do you need more information? Yeah. And I like to use every little hole that's available, right? So if I can just sneak this in here, I will. Don't waste any space. This can also be mirrored over. Let me make sure that I have the correct side. Yes. Yeah, I don't want to I'm not going to do this perfectly. I'm just going to pack it as well as I can because, again, I'm going to have to do this all over again. So packing this would just be a little bit of a waste of time. But I do want to demo it as well as I can, right? Again, I'm just trying to make sure that everything fits. I try to group things together as best I can. Sometimes you can't, but I want to keep all the hands together and the arms and stuff like that, or maybe specific materials. So if I had a bunch of belts, which I do, I'd probably keep all the belts in the same area of the texture. It's just easier to texture if everything's kind of grouped together. It's less important with Substance Painter, but it's still nice if you're like painting in the 2D view. It's easier to find what you're looking for, right? Also keep in mind that I didn't break off the skin on all the clothing parts yet. I probably will group all the skin together once that's done. But you can see like here, like it has like this patch of skin, this part here is skin, this part here is skin, and I'd probably break that apart and relay it out. But just, you know, something to note, right? I'll rotate stuff around. I suppose I could talk about hair too in a minute, as well as like laying out the hair UVs. Oops. Did I move this? No. A lot of the times folks will rotate things 45 degrees too if they need to fit them in. I try to keep things pretty straight though, just because it's just easier for me to deal with than having it all like, what's the word? All distorted, right? Okay. You'll just like go around, start moving stuff, and trying to find, you know, the best solution for everything, right? Okay. Oops. Forgot that was overlapping. Where does thou go? You're gonna go there. Okay. Oh hell. that kind of thing happens a lot too, where you're just like looking around and then all of a sudden you just see you missed a big chunk of UVs and you're like, God damn it. It's funny. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just scale this down. I tend to like to snap it to the grid so that I can just scale it and slap more stuff in there. That's what I'm doing. But also, that's not the end all solution, right? So it's just because if I scale it down, you know, you still have to move stuff around to make it fit, right? And you want to optimize the space and make it as big as possible. Yeah, so it's still like it takes moving things around because you don't want to make things too small either, because then you're just going to end up with these super blurry textures, right? Like this is very bad where I have like all this wasted space, right? All stuff to keep in mind. This is even more annoying because I know that I'm just wasting. I have to do this all over again. I'm not going to be too precious about this, but I do want to I want to try because I'm trying to show you the proper way to do it. And if I just kind of do it half-assed, then it's not really going to help you all that much now, is it? And I try not to make things too close together because when you're going to have different LODs, right? So the textures are going to get blurred and the resolution is going to get reduced. And when you do that, then some objects start bleeding onto other things, right? And even if they don't get reduced, there's MIP mapping. So when things are viewed from further away, they also get kind of softened off a little bit, not due to reduced file size, just because they blur it so that it's not noisy, right? And that blurring will also cause things to bleed onto other objects. And even then, if objects are super close together, you're still gonna, like, because of the base resolution of the texture, no matter what, you're gonna have things, if things are too close, you're gonna get a little bit of the one color bleeding onto the other. So they shouldn't be touching or anything like that, even if you're gonna not reduce the texture at all. Okay. Oh, I thought I was missing something. I was like, I'm sure there's more. But wait, there's more. Not one, but two. Yeah, trying to be clever, but it's hard, guys. So hard. I'm trying my best. Yeah, so I just try to like find areas that I can kind of like stick things together and pack them. Yeah, it feels soft, man. If I move this around, I don't know, I'll probably rotate this 9 degrees. I'd rather have not done that, but whatever. You gotta do what you gotta do. Sometimes you can't always have what you want. You just gotta try your best. And there's the reality is things can always be better, right? And you're gonna be limited by a number of things, including time. And you're also gonna be limited to just drive, right? You're gonna get to a point where you're just like, I just can't do this anymore. And you have to be like, okay, this is good enough. And you just move on, right? It always ends up being that way. I'd love to say that it's never that way, and it's just like, oh yeah, I'll always make things as the best thing ever. I'll be incredibly happy with the result, but that never happens. It's always like, oh, I get to a point and it's like, oh man, I think that's good enough. I think it has to end here, right? Make sure you like look around your model and make sure that, or your UVs, I should say, and make sure that things aren't too close and that you're taking advantage of the space. See here, it's really close to this object, but it doesn't have to be. It has all this space. I can just freaking move it up here, right? If I have the space available to me, might as well use it, right? And this isn't perfect. This isn't perfect. I would put more time to this, but I think this will be good enough just for now, okay? Obviously things can be tighter, right? And I think when I have all these UVs done, I'll show you the final UVs before we texture. You can kind of see how I laid things out, right? I think that'll be beneficial. So now the next thing I do is I turn on, what is this called? Toggle shaded UV display. I don't know the name of it. I just click the button. And here what it's going to show me, two things. If it's a dark blue, you have two of the same object kind of overlapping, right? So for instance, if I had a bunch of these buttons down here, and I've UV'd them all and they all share the same texture, they're gonna be a dark blue because they're all overlapping, right? Or you're gonna get this kind of purpley color because you have the mirrored side overlapping with the main side, right? So what I end up doing is I end up selecting our object, right? And I try to take the backside, and I've created a little script for this. I'll show you what the script is, but all it does is offset by one UV tile. So we go to offset L, right? That's my little script. And I'll show you, again, I'll show you the script after. I have one for right and left, right? So I just offset all these guys to the left. If you accidentally select the wrong one, what I end up doing is I'll move it to the right side. Yeah, so there, that'll happen. So basically what I do is I'll offset it to the right, and then I'll select both of them, and then offset them both back to the left. And now all of these are on this side. The reason I do this is because when you bake your textures, the baking tool will get a little bit confused. It won't know which object to take the bake from. And what will happen sometimes is you'll get either buzzing, or it'll just randomly choose one, and the other one will get faded away. So basically, if I wanted to say well, essentially what you want to do is you want to have it so that you control which side gets the bake and the other one gets the mirror. So all this stuff here will not be considered during the baking process. It'll only consider the stuff in the 0 to 1 space. So it's very important to kind of offset all your stuff that is mirrored or that uses the same texture off to the side so that it doesn't create problems. All right, and I was going to show you that script. So offset R, edit. It's very simple. It's just a little, well, I converted it to Python. You could use Mel, but I like Python more. It's just this script. So basically all it's doing is it's importing the Maya commands. And then basically when you import Maya commands, it allows you to use Mel within Python. And then that becomes an object. And you can call anything within Mel through Python. So I'm saying I want to call the poly edit UV object, and I just offset it in the U by 1. If you said V, it would be a vertical offset. And I have a few tools like this too, like the scaling one that I was showing you earlier, where I was doubling the size of the UVs. This one is similar. So this one, it just takes the pivot point of the scale, right? And then it says the amount of scale right here. And this is the poly. It's the same tool. I'm just providing it different properties, and it does a different thing. And I'm scaling it by 2 in both axes. Another time that I'll use stuff like this is if I have, say, a square texture or a rectangular texture, which happens sometimes. It's probably going to happen when I make the sword prop. The UVs are probably going to be in a rectangular texture because it's a very long object, and it's not going to require a lot of space. So what ends up happening is you have UVs that take up this segment of your UV panel, right? So say I fit everything in there. I'm going to do that with a cube, okay? So say we have this cube, right? And say for whatever reason that we want to take advantage of, like, we don't want to use all the space that we don't need, right? So we're going to say, well, I don't need all of this space. I'm going to fit it in just this left half of the texture, right? So what I end up doing is once I've UV'd everything out and it all looks nice, before baking, I will actually take the UVs and I will double it in one axis. Oops, that's the wrong one. Hold on. I always forget which one it is. Not that one. There it is. Okay, great. And the way I have my tool set up is it actually pivots from the other side. So I usually pack anything that's in a horizontal sheet in this side, right? And then I'll just scale it up. Again, wrong one every time. There. And now it's stretched. So what you want to make sure when you're baking this is you're baking a 2048, no, sorry, a 1024 by a 2048 map. And it's okay for the textures to be stretched like this because it is going to get a thin texture sheet and it's just going to be applied over it. Does that make any sense? So essentially it's going to have, you just consider this as a rectangle as opposed to being a square because it's going to have any texture that you apply gets fitted to this square. So if you apply a rectangular texture, it's still going to get stretched across to this square. The only way it won't do that is if you tile the texture, which you could also do in the material properties. But you'll still want to do this to bake it because you need it to fill the 0 to 1 space. Even if it's a rectangular texture, it'll still use the 0 to 1 space. It'll use the whole square, even if you are baking a rectangular map. Yeah. I think that was the only other thing that I wanted to bring up. And with that, I think I've covered everything that needs to be covered for the UV stream. The next thing we're going to be doing, unless anyone has any questions, is I'm going to finish this off stream, obviously, because it's going to take me all week. And then I'll show you at the beginning of the texture stream what the UVs look like. But it's all going to be the same kind of process, right? Of just like cutting things and placing things around. And I've shown you the most complex parts. I suppose I could have shown the hair and stuff too, and how you slice that up. I'll show you after, like as well, like how I slice up, for instance, the UVs for this hair when we move on to texturing. Now I can't guarantee we'll be able to get to that next week. I don't know how long this will take me. I still have to finish retopping a few parts, so it does take some time. So it might be delayed an extra week. And if that's the case, we'll do some prop modeling next weekend. I think I said this last weekend too, but I managed to get far enough to do some UVs for this. But it will catch up eventually, right? So just a heads up. Yeah, props. Yeah. And hey, Venti. Anyway, I'm going to stop the recording for anyone who's watching that and is learning about UVs. I hope it was beneficial to you. And if there's any other questions, I will cover them. So yeah, I'll just open the floor real quick. Does anyone have any questions about UVs? Anything that you wanted me to cover specifically live? Give you a minute. No questions? Okay. All right then. I will leave it there for the video. And I will, if anyone has questions in the video, you can also comment questions and I will answer them. And that's that. All right, VOD watchers, have a good rest of your day.